Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It's great to have you on this cold, sunny day here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I want to welcome you to another edition of Coffee and Pan Dulce. This is our weekly show, and today is Wednesday, January 23rd, our second show of the year. So I want to welcome you to our show, and I hope your family is doing well in the New Year's, and I hope you had a great MLK weekend with all the celebrations that were going on around the nation. So once again, welcome to our show. Let's jump immediately into introducing myself. I'm Christian Cano. This is Coffee and Pan Dulce. And our guest today is Jeff Scott. You want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Thank you, Chris. I am the man about town, Jeff Scott. And always a pleasure to be here and discuss the important issues of the day. And Chespita Paparazza is here to direct us.
Exactly.
And I feel very confident.
Yes.
And I'm very appreciative of the Pan Dulce.
Yes. Yes.
And coffee.
And
so
that's
maybe
right.
we should take our...
Let's go ahead and start off.
Our
Welcome. This is
simultaneous
our salute.
So,
Well, once again, I want to welcome everyone to our Facebook Live. Those who are following us on Facebook Live currently and who are going to watch us now on our Facebook Live page on Coffee and Pan Dulce. Also, those who are watching us on the other formats and on YouTube on Chespita Paparazza's YouTube site. Did I say that correctly?
Chespita Paparazza.
Jeff has got probably a better grasp of the Spanish language.
That's because I embrace other cultures.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Sometimes it's embarrassing. I appreciate that. So listen, let's go ahead and explain for those who've never watched us before. Even though we've had several shows, you can go back and watch our other shows online and Facebook and YouTube as well. What is Coffee and Pan Dulce? Coffee and Pan Dulce is a Facebook Live show that we stream on Facebook. We also stream it on other formats as well. We hope to get to several other formats. It goes out into Massachusetts, New York, Georgia, I believe,
Florida.
as well. Miami, Florida. And it is, for those who aren't familiar with Coffee and Pan Dulce, Coffee and Pan Dulce is something that many Latinx families enjoy on a daily basis or for special occasions. They drink coffee and they eat pan dulce, which is, I guess pan dulce is bread. We call it sweet bread in the Mexican culture. Other cultures maybe call it a little bit differently.
Sweet pastries.
Sweet pastries, that's right. And the show is targeted towards Latinx viewers and allies. And predominantly English-speaking Latinx viewers and allies, which are the fastest-growing demographic in America. They're the fastest-growing in Charlotte and CMS schools. And so we wanted to make sure that we had an educational show and political show as well to that demographic. The goal, obviously, is to educate people from a perspective of what's going on around North Carolina, what's going on around our area, our neighborhoods here in Charlotte, North Carolina as well. Because as we know, for many issues, Charlotte, North Carolina is really ground zero for a lot of civil rights and issues as well. So with that said, I want to thank today's sponsor of our Coffee and Pan Dulce. It is Blau Catering. Haiti Blau is the owner and baker, I believe, of Blau Catering. She has provided today's pan dulce. It looks beautiful. Anyone who needs catering needs for pan dulce, please give her a call at 704-805-0269. Thank you.
There you are.
Thank you. She's also on Facebook as well. Once again, that's Blau Catering. Haiti Blau is the owner, and it looks delicious. Believe me, it smells delicious. So I'm not going to take,
very good.
While you're taking a bite, I'm going to go ahead and go into what else I need to speak with as well. I also want to wish her, Haiti Blau, a happy birthday today. Apparently, we heard through the grapevine today is her birthday. So, Senora, happy birthday. Should we sing happy birthday? Well, we'll salute to you with coffee. How's that? Happy birthday to you. So happy birthday as well. As you notice, we're missing some of our regular guests. Mrs. Ruth Perez is not with us today. Ruth will try to carry the show and keep us in line here. Mr. Tony Fromer, unfortunately, is still dealing with some family issues. And we hope, brother, we hope your situation gets better, or whatever issues are keeping you from our show. We do miss you. We really need your perspective. Our conservative guest woke up this morning with a Charlotte cold, with this cold weather. Fudd, Mr. Fudd, we're missing you as well. So you and I are going to have to carry the show today.
That's okay. I will. I'm a man of many hats. I can do the arguments on both sides, the top side, the bottom side.
Funny you say many hats. I was actually going to wear my hat today.
Oh.
As many of you know, I traditionally wear a cowboy hat in honor of my grandparents, or my grandfather at least, former World War II veteran. But there is hat etiquette, and you don't usually wear it in someone's house unless they say, please wear your hat in my house or in a house of worship. This is my house, so I thought, what the heck, I'm going to wear it. It's just you and I. But I decided, no, let's just maintain hat etiquette for all those people who aren't familiar with where you wear a hat and where you don't wear a hat. Now, today's topic was going to be about the Women's March. And we had a brief conversation before the show that it probably was not appropriate for us to talk about the Women's March with just two guys. I guess we could do it from the guy perspective.
We don't want to do gender appropriation.
Exactly.
Right?
And
I
so...
don't want my daughter nagging me later about my silly opinions about the Women's March.
We could get Christipa involved in this conversation, but then we would have no one to direct us. So we need all the direction we can get. So
that's true.
I've done I've taken personal privilege by just coming up with a topic.
Okay, that's fine.
And there was a topic that we were going to talk about that we both made a decision this weekend after, because there was so much political sides from both, and we believe that children should be off limits when we're talking about politics or issues. And I agree with you. And so even though that is probably one of the topics that are being talked about for a lot of people, what I'm referring to is what happened in Washington, D.C. With the indigenous gentleman, the Native American gentleman, and some Catholic school individuals. And we made a decision to not talk about that. Is that
right? That's true,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't need to talk about the details of that because it's changed so rapidly.
Yeah.
But that could allow us to talk about the changing nature of the news cycle.
That's
because this is something that comes up certainly in our party.
Sure.
Trying to get the message out, trying to get people to develop a message so that we can get around it and project it out there in the simplest form possible. This is something that professionals do, and it's very difficult for volunteers to do small-scale competitive messaging.
Sure.
Because it's saturated.
Yep.
So you really do have to have your chops.
Sure.
And it obviously helps if you've got investors, personal fortune,
sure,
to have that kind of platform and compete in that space. So in this, let me just give you an example.
Sure.
An event like this, someone will want to say something about it early on because they have a reaction to it. And it turns out that their reaction wasn't very well formed.
You're talking about the event this weekend that happened.
The event this weekend, but we could even go back further in time and
an event in
last week or the week before. There's some event that people respond to. You can either refer to it as clickbait or something that is built to get a reaction from the viewer. And then the story changes over time. So I think it's just a better idea to kind of wait and see on a lot of this stuff, because it does feel like it's very manipulative, and I think a lot of people feel like they've been manipulated by this story. But we don't necessarily even need to single out this story, because we know this happens with a fair degree of regularity.
And I'm glad you said that, Jeff, because that's actually what I want to talk about. I want to talk about, you and I are in a very unique position where we have both run, and you may be running again,
yes.
Campaigns at the congressional level, which, running for city council or running for county commission or running for state, it's just different degrees of running. The campaign's running a campaign.
Yeah.
There are these tendencies for us when we're in the midst of a campaign, especially with social media, especially with the 24-hour news cycle, as you and I discuss. There was a time where we never wanted to comment on issues until we knew all the facts. And
That's right.
we wanted to make sure in the business world, the professional world, we always wanted to make sure we knew all the facts, whether it was about an employee or whatever we wanted. Now it seems like you almost have to reply within 24 hours, or people want, where is that person or whatever. So because you and I have both been in that situation, and I know I have dealt with it differently than you have. You're a little bit more cautious than I think I am. You want to kind of share how you feel about that and running?
For example, something came up during last year, and I can't even remember what it was. It might have been the way children are being treated at the border or something like that. And someone on the campaign wanted to issue a statement about it, and I just said, look, everybody's talking about this. There's no reason to expect that anybody is actually going to come to me or the campaign or the local party to get a sophisticated opinion about this, because we don't have all the facts. We can't compete with the major networks. We can't compete with the well-funded campaigns. We don't have it's difficult to even have a website developer who or have someone manage a sophisticated blog to be able to project this stuff and then push it out on the right channels. I know that this, Chispita's operation here is a step above what I'm capable of, certainly, with projecting out on multiple channels and making sure that there's some sponsorship.
Sure.
So that's a good model for people who may just either be running small scale candidacies or they're a blogger. They want to be writing opinion pieces, things like that. It's just very competitive. You can't compete with the highly paid professionals who know how to do this, who know how to grab viewers with headlines and pictures. They've got to have all of those things working together to do this, and they're very sophisticated at it. So I don't have that same level of sophistication. I don't have the money to pay for the staff to do that. The local party doesn't do that. The state party doesn't do that. The national party doesn't do that. And to the extent that they try to do that,
sure,
I think they don't succeed. And I think I'm just singling out the libertarians, sure, because I think it's also probably true of the Greens. The Greens may see that they've got some issue, and it would be a great issue for them to take advantage of, to say, look, we're the Greens. We have a solution to the problem that people are talking about. We want to get our message out. I don't think they're as organized either to have a full battalion or battery of media lined up and just to have command over the technology so that they can actually generate an answer. Now, we know that there are some local groups that are single issue groups, like Normal, for instance, that is actually pretty good at this.
Yeah.
They've got a pretty good national infrastructure. They've got pretty good state and local, and they can project messages to their followers and get people riled up. Now, they're not running a campaign. They're out to win hearts and minds. So we don't really know what the results of that are going to be. Are they looking for donations? Are they looking for people to show up at protests? And just as an aside, for example, there's one group that has come up recently, and they're trying to use media as best as they can to call attention to their problem, and that's the Don't Punish Pain rally, which is going to be in Raleigh next Tuesday, so that'll be 6 days from today.
From yesterday, okay.
And this is a growing group. It's a growing grassroots group of pain patients who many of whom suffer chronic pain, who are the victims of this very restrictive policy that's come down from the CDC punishments on the doctors for allegedly overprescribing. So this is a very complex issue that we don't need to go into. I'm just using it as an example of how a group gets a lot of membership from around the country, and they organize rallies. They've got their own webcast, they've got their own podcast, they've got their own Twitterers, and they're organizing around that because they're suffering, and they're suffering right now. So they've been able to. That is a big motivator. That kind of pain is a very big motivator. So their media campaign is moving along very nicely, moving along very quickly.
Well, I hear what you're saying, especially when you were talking about from the Libertarian and the Green Party or some of the third parties, and our Democratic Party is a major party, and almost every Democratic candidate or Republican, the expectation when you do run a campaign is to make sure that your message is out there constantly, and understandably, it's to keep your base excited and engaged in your campaign, to keep them following you, to keep them, whatever your strategy is and so forth. Of course, my campaign had a little bit different strategy. Some other individuals, we really had to focus on that because we didn't have the money that some other congressional campaigns had. And we did very well in 2016 with our effort with the digital media director, with the emails, with appearances, and making sure people knew where you were. And it really, for us, it paid off a lot because we traveled so much in 2016 and in 2018 as well, up and down all of the 8 counties, and we would, there's no way you can meet everyone, but we would have people that ran into us and said, God, I can see you're out there all the time. I saw you in Robeson and Anson County talking and so forth and whatever. And so it does help with your message. But there are some candidates that just use social media and that's it. And to give the impression that they're out there. And
you do have to pick your battles, and it's all based on what resources you have and what strategy you have, and you want to be out meeting people. I totally admire that. That's great, and I try to use that as much as a model for my campaigns to meet as many people as possible. Get out there as much as possible.
And so, so the reason I wanted to talk about this was because when you and I had that conversation via internet, I wanted to talk about that issue. I thought, hey, this is a hot issue. This is, everyone's retreating to their corners. If you're in this tribe, this is who you're defending. If this is this tribe, you're defending. You're listening to the tribe talking heads on how terrible this is. And then you brought the conversation I had. I said, well, you're right. I mean, if I had not run for office, and in my profession, my previous profession, I would have done exactly what you said. Hey, we don't have all the information. Let's sit back. Let's let the dust settle for a little bit. Let's find out what happened here. Let's find out what happened here. Let's look at the full video. As people are saying, have you seen the full video? What is the situation? These are kids, this, and then let's sit back and let's make an adult decision as we have to in the real world, with personnel issues or whatever. And so then I said, we need to start sitting back. But just as I said that, I almost was trying to see where everyone else was commenting, and there were some people that were commenting, and there were some people that were remaining completely silent. And I think the reason that I was concerned about those who are remaining completely silent, because those are the individuals that generally, I guess I just want to, if I were a voter or a social media follower or whatever, I just want to see consistency. So if you're posting as a candidate or a political elected servant or whatever, if you're posting on social media on a daily basis, and then something major happens in America, like Charlottesville, like, I'm not sure this is like Charlottesville, but something major like this, and then you're quiet, you open yourself up to people who say, well, you commented on this, why isn't this just as important?
Well, let me offer a counter to that, because because news organizations understand that about human nature, and that's why we have the phenomena of clickbait. So when something comes out that's news, it might not really be news because they've, in many cases, and this weekend is a perfect example. Sure. A lot of the context was missing. A lot of the perspective is missing. Now, when I first saw the pictures, I saw, okay, there's this young boy, and he's just, he's got a little smirk on his face, and guess what? I was a teenager once too. Thank goodness they didn't have, the internet and digital cameras everywhere back then. I would be in deep trouble if we went back over time. And I know many people who would say the exact same thing. Yeah, I did some stupid things when I was a teenager too. I even did some stupid things when I was an adult. Go figure. Having said that, knowledge and wisdom comes from having a body of experience and understanding context and understanding perspective and understanding human motivations, but also understanding this change in the news cycle that we've talked about and the I think it's a form of predatory behavior to put out stories like this to get everybody fired up. Now, campaigns do it, and some campaigns do it not unconsciously, but other parties. The dark money does this for candidates because they can't give money to the candidate directly. So what they want to do is they want to create a bad story about the other candidate. So they want to inflame people to get people very riled up. And we've had this conversation before that fear is a big motivator for people. And when we're talking about how we reach people and how we convey information and how we offer ourselves as problem solvers, we have to be grown-ups about it.
And so it is this double-edged sword for candidates and campaigns and just movements in general. How much social media do you post? How, do you comment on every single thing that happens every day? Do you wait, or whatever the case may be? It can also work against you. I think that commenting too much obviously can work against you in many ways, because then people become less interested in you, because when they see you popping up, then they're like more likely to let me take you off first sight or whatever that is, and so forth. So,
and I've got stuff in my social media feeds, and
that you originally were following, and then you get so many of them. You're like, let me mute you for a while.
And a classic example would be Trump derangement syndrome, but there's also AOC derangement syndrome. So this works on both sides.
Oh, right? I'm not tired of her yet.
Well, but
she just posts so much; it's hard to keep track of all.
Well,
of
I was.
It's like
my point is that I'm
your
tired,
family or her.
I'm tired of the people who are outraged by her.
Oh yeah, I see.
It's let her have her say. Let her say. She can do.
Sure.
She's got a little celebrity. What's the word I'm looking for? Panache. So let her have her day in the sun.
Sure.
Go ahead and mail her a copy of Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, the great economics text.
There's the dig for the day.
And let her understand. Let her understand.
I'm gonna let you talk. I'm gonna write down what I'm gonna say.
Okay. So, let her have her moment in the sun, just like let Trump have his moment in the sun, and don't get he doesn't need any more sun.
Yeah, I was.
But I guess what we're getting at, the common theme here is this derangement syndrome over what people are saying, or what you think they're saying, what you think someone did, or what you think someone said, versus what they actually said that may or may not be newsworthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Trump. The one time I really felt that I was getting a little Trump derangement syndrome was when he was threatening Iran, and the mother of all bombs or something like that. and that was the one that sort of took me back to, jumping under the desk when I was at elementary school, where I was really afraid, and I thought this is where he really crossed the line. He's done many things that I don't think. I'm like, okay, well, listen to it. He's kind of when we talked about this last week.
Yeah.
He's a businessman. He's going for these extreme positions. He's a blowhard. He's from New York. He's got all these things that I don't like about him. But I'm trying to look for the things that really upset me.
Sure.
And it's the actual threatening. Like I'm going to bomb the hell. He's got his Twitter account and he's got the red button right there, right? Twitter red button.
Well, let me share with you that.
Excuse me.
I'm not sure if I'm concerned or if I'm amused, but the fact that I forgot Washington Post or AP did a story on how many lies he tells a day or whatever, and it's only been one that upset you.
Well, no, it was only one that.
See, this is the day I wish we had fun here.
It was only one that made me feel like I might have Trump derangement syndrome.
I see.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
Everything else is, like we discussed in the past weeks, like the wall. Well, that's not a lie. It's just it's kind of incomplete. What does he want? What does he want to accomplish?
Yeah.
He's not saying what he wants to accomplish. Is that going to help the detention centers? Is that going to help? The H-1B problem? Is that going to help all these this whole array of other problems that we think need to be addressed? The wall, concrete barrier with surveillance drones, cameras, whatever, that'll work.
And I think that, once again, the reason I think this was, I decided to kind of talk about this was because it is, you and I are both kind of in a unique situation where we can understand each other because we're candidates, and once again, you may be a candidate again very, very quickly.
I'm wearing the button,
and also we are neighbors, people who want to know what's going on in the world.
That's right.
And so
we're real people.
Yeah, we're real people. And
in
so,
a real city.
Regardless if you're an elected official, if you're a politician, or you're a candidate, or you're a political junkie, or whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, you're still an American, a citizen who wants to get information. You want to be as educated on a topic as you can. And I guess we're just in a little bit unique situation where we can understand whenever we see things on social media or we see comments coming from a candidate or elected official or whatever, we have an idea of how that process works. So I know it may have worked differently in your campaign. In my campaign, and I know every campaign is different, before something is put out there on your behalf, there's generally... I got to be careful how I say this because obviously there's a couple of times where I did not follow that rule. Yeah. There's generally a hierarchy that you follow where there's a strategist who would say, hey, this is going on, or someone in your campaign manager, or there's a media director, or someone, hey, do you want to comment on this? This is what happened.
There's gatekeepers to make sure you
look
dumb. Make sure you don't look stupid.
Which is really hard to do because
it is hard.
You can have too many gatekeepers, which makes you come across as just... I think Robert Pitcher for me was a perfect example of that.
Just bland.
It was just like
non-committal, vague.
It was very. I understand it, and then you have individuals maybe like I would say like AOC, who you could tell she has a lot more influence on what gets posted. I'm sure whoever's posted, she says, "What do you think? Why don't you add this?" And she has a lot more input. And I'm the type of person that has a lot of input on what happens if I'm not doing it, whatever. So, and then there are individuals that, but what we had before, especially in 2016, is before anything was posted, 2-3 people had to look at it, first for grammar, first for this or whatever. And then we realized that those didn't get very many likes, those didn't get, a lot of organic...
It didn't set
all the data.
It did not set anyone's hair on fire.
Exactly. Yes. And so you end up going, when you look at the data, you look at your weekly things, and it says, hey, when we said this, we got a demographic between 55 to 65 that liked it and looked at it, and then we got the people who didn't like it were this demographic between this age and this age, and in many ways, it's even better to get them because they help with your algorithms. They help with that get pushed up. They help people talking about it. And then you don't obviously don't want all of that the hate comments, but you can hide those and you can manipulate what's it's all branding, it's all marketing.
That's right.
So if anyone out there is looking at someone else's page, regardless of who it is, it's very manipulative. It's very marketing. They probably have 5 or 6 people on their staff who do nothing but reply to social media under 4 or 5 different accounts. Even though when they find those accounts, they cancel them.
Yeah.
And they'll hide someone's comments. They have to make a determination: when do I block this person? When do I don't? When is this really a Russian bot? Or is this whatever?
Yeah.
And I think the person who was probably best at this was Tom Tillis when he ran his last election. He had all of these fake female accounts on there, and they were just manipulating Twitter and social media. And the Kay Hagan people just could not keep up, and it was just they were following each other. Mm-hmm. And Democrats do it as well. You look at the Democratic Twitter accounts, a lot of them are one person with 4 or 5 accounts who just republish someone else's. They're usually a digital media person whose friend is friend. Some people have up to 10 people on their staff who do nothing but do social media and share it.
Right, it's the modern equivalent of busing people to a rally.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, except Trump actually did that, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. And I, that strikes me as a legitimate practice. We're going to have a rally today. Everybody get on the bus, and we're going to drive 10 miles to the rally.
Or like writing your own Yelp review.
Well, there's a
for those who have businesses,
that's unethical.
Well, it's an illegal too, and there were hotels in Hawaii actually who got taken off of Travel Advisor and stuff because back in my day in the hotel business, you'd be really, really careful because your comp set, you would see reviews on their hotels would be the staff was exceptional, and it was so obvious to catch a fake review. You could tell a review that was genuine, and you could tell a review that was manipulated, and it's hard to prove that.
It is hard to tell the difference.
But the reason I said that was because when you and I made that decision not to talk, even though we're going to talk about it, when you and I decided not to talk about that issue that happened in D.C., and then we said, okay, because kids should be off limits, which I do believe that, but let's give it time. As soon as I said that, we posted something saying how outraged we supported underserved people's outrage.
Right.
And the reason that we did was because of the fact that we felt it was important for us to be consistent, because I have tried to always post something when it deals with, I believe, I don't know if this is dealt with it, and that's where you have a good point. When anything deals with racism, bigotry, hatred, or anything that I believe that the rhetoric of Trump feeds into, because I one of those persons who I feel the day that I stop doing that is the day it becomes normal.
Yeah.
And even though for many people it has become so normal that it doesn't seem to shock them anymore, I still refuse to, for me, to allow that to happen. So when Charlottesville happened, I wanted people to post, this is outrageous, and I expected that from our president, and we didn't get it.
Yeah.
We didn't get it from the person I was running against, which got me into some hot water from some words I said. And when the Charlotte Uprising situation happened as well, we posted something, we did it. Robert Pittenger said nothing. As a matter of fact, at that time, if those who remember, I was running against Robert Pittenger. He said that black people were just jealous because of the success of white people, and then he started to blame black pastors for it happening, and it was like, that was the time I almost wish I would have said, just shut up, don't let anybody post anything for you or say anything. So I wanted to hear that, and so then I saw that, and then after I saw that, my natural instinct is to look for those people that I follow.
Yeah.
You didn't say anything.
Right.
But to your credit, you don't often make any comments on those issues. So I wasn't upset or happy or mad because that's you. I realized that.
Yeah.
But there were some individuals that were quiet and didn't say anything. And these individuals were the ones that are trying to stand on this mantle of they're here to fight for these individuals. I'm trying not to say any names, but
well,
that's I thought. Well,
again, it's difficult to, everybody has to choose their battles, and I've got many battles in my life that I'm dealing with, and I don't have the time
Sure.
to do all that stuff. So even as a potential candidate, I
Mhm.
still don't have a lot of time
Sure.
to react to stuff like that. I do like to be a little more reflective about these
Yeah.
things. You know, when people talk about so it's a whole other issue, right? Is Trump's demeanor, is his
Mhm.
approach to things enabling racism? Now,
Mhm.
in fairness, if Ruth and Tony were here, they'd be all over this, right?
Mhm. And if Fun were here, he'd probably say something a little.
Yeah, but
No, Fun and
you know, I'm willing to accept that with a fair amount of evidence. There's a fair amount of anecdotal evidence that people feel free to say things they might not have said a few
Sure.
years ago because they were censoring themselves,
Yeah.
or they want to make. You know, there's all kinds of controversial issues out there that even a lot of academics are afraid
Sure.
to weigh in on, and that has to do with, you know, IQ measurements
Sure.
and stuff like that. Sources of poverty, problems with unemployment, and hiring under diversity. I mean, that's a whole complex area, and so when we want to go in and have those discussions, you know, we don't want to have our hair on fire about
Mhm.
Trump's latest tweet,
Sure.
whether he's enabled the fire in the belly for
Mhm.
all of these latent racists who
Sure.
finally can say what it is that they really think about other people and other cultures. Having said that, it's pretty clear that a lot of people do actually like this idea of the wall as, you know, keeping people out. Like, and I discovered this the hard way on my own campaign page, right, where people are just saying, when I talked about abolishing ICE, or at least not abolishing ICE, defrosting ICE,
Sure.
and moving it back into the Department
Which
of Justice.
I
Right.
support as well. Yeah.
That's right. So where there would be some constraints on them, and they wouldn't have this massively growing budget, and they wouldn't be this insidious force that would be undermining our constitutional protections. You know, my argument was always that what's happening to those people, those brown people on the border that you don't like, I guarantee you that's going to be happening to someone you know and you love pretty soon. So having said that, in my life and the people that I surround myself with and the people that I like to hang out with, I don't see a lot of that. You know, it has to be done furtively and anonymously, and people don't say those kinds of things in front of me. And maybe they just know that I would react poorly, but they will say things anonymously, semi-anonymously, pseudonymously on my Facebook page or Twitter or something like that.
That is why, yes, that's why I want to talk about you. But before I do that, I don't know if you had a chance to.
Oh yeah, it's delicious. Thank you.
Take a bite of this. Listen, this is really good Ponduse.
We want to support our sponsors.
Yes,
Thank you so
well,
much.
this is our
good.
sponsor of the Ponduse, and once again, it is Haiti Blau, and she is the owner of Blau Catering, and this is, my understanding is, in Cristipa, maybe
Chispita.
Chispita.
Chispita paparazzo.
Senora Paparazza, let me just say that. It's Guatemala, is that right? It's
Guatemala bread.
It's Guatemala bread, which is, I think it's the first time I've ever had Guatemala
tasty,
bread. Yeah, it's very good. And once again, I encourage you, if you're looking for some catering, her number is 704-805-0269. She is here in Charlotte, and she's on Facebook as well.
What neighborhood is the bakery?
Well, actually, she is a caterer.
Oh, catering. Yeah.
She
She-
distribute.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's a caterer, and
Great.
she lives here in South Charlotte.
Yes,
So,
South
once again, happy birthday once again, and Haiti Blau, once again, thank you so much for the wonderful bread. If we had more people, it would give me an opportunity to eat it as well, but since it's just you and I. The reason I wanted to talk about this,
Yes.
and I went 40-something minutes, so we're probably, I know we started just a little bit late, but
Yeah.
this weekend, I was biting my tongue. For those who have followed me,
La lengua.
for those who have followed me, know that after the Charlottesville event happened and the unfortunate events in Charlottesville, I got into a lot of trouble, not only as a candidate, and I was very upset at the racism and bigotry that I felt was being not paying attention to when President Trump, or 45, just said, well, there's guilt to be on both sides and so forth and whatever. And so like many Americans, we were like, well, how, we're so used to our presidents just saying what happened was wrong and this, and that was it.
Yeah.
But he had to add, well, both sides are at fault and this, which really upset things. And I was just really outraged by that. And I had asked at that time, because we were in the midst of campaigning for 2018, for anyone who's running, who wants to represent my family, but also to please speak out against this. This is something that we could all hold hands and be unified in. Robert Pittenger said something. I think Mark Harris said something. Whatever. I wasn't concerned about that because I'm a Democrat. My opponent did not say anything. What my opponent did was share someone else's comments.
Yeah.
And that really upset me, not only as a candidate, but also as a Democrat, that I would have a person who's running as a Democrat who didn't have the courage to, because I knew the reason they didn't want to do that was because they didn't want to, they were so scared about losing people that they thought they needed to win the election if they had gotten to the, so
Right.
I made the comments that I did, which I have since paid dearly, but also done very well, by the way, by making those comments.
Yeah.
Same thing happened this weekend. That situation happened. We said something. I'm not sure Mark Harris posted anything. I don't expect anything from Robert Pittenger, but most people who are in head of a tribe or whatever, said something. That same individual didn't say anything until later on, after we had posted things, and forwarded or shared a comment that someone else said. And of course my rage started to come back again and started to say, I don't understand how hard it is for you just to say this is wrong. Why? How is that going to hurt you? If you think you're going to lose some white nationalists, or you're going to lose a couple of people in Union County, you're not going to get their vote anyway. You would have, then you would have run as a Republican.
Yeah.
Why is that so hard for that? So my thinking was,
okay, go ahead.
My thinking was, this is a pattern. This individual doesn't walk in pride. Has only walked in the MLK parade once, and so I didn't walk in the MLK parade this last time. Walked the last time MLK parade. Doesn't attend any events where members of color are. So, at what point do we, as Democrats, start to call those people out within our own party and say, "Listen, I don't know." Well, I wish I had Tony here to share my frustration with that.
It's just not clear to me that people reacting to certain social events is a good measure of their mettle.
But we expect them to. There are certain of us that expect that. So
you were hoping he would be a different kind of Democrat.
Or the person.
The other person. Another kind of person.
That's right. That's right. And obviously, the person's not.
Yeah. So just my
take
take on this whole alt-right white nationalist thing is that they're given far too much credit for this stuff. There's really not that many of them. There's just a couple of people they're agitating, and they're not very important. They're not very important. There's not very many of them. The media gives them an insane amount of attention precisely to put your hair on fire. And I'm trying to avoid stuff like that because
as you should.
Because I don't think we're getting the real story.
No, you're right. You're right. As you should. And to your credit, and I'll give you credit for this, I took your advice, and I decided not to light my hair on fire, and I decided to say, all right, you know what? That's not your campaign.
Yeah.
that person,
Yeah.
if you're thinking this, there are probably 70% of the other Democrats are saying this. They just don't want to say it because they
Yeah.
don't want to be in the same situation that,
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
had got myself into with our party. And I hear this all the time, you know, I don't really like this individual, but
Yeah.
that is our nominee, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I didn't say anything.
Right.
I didn't say anything until I saw the person's posting yesterday or 2 days ago
Yeah.
about Martin Luther King. Most people
Yeah.
in our party, Democrats,
Mhm.
most people who are concerned about civil rights and social
Mhm.
justice, you usually post something on Martin Luther King Day, just as Republicans post
Yeah.
things on Veterans Day, Memorial
Yeah.
Day. They milk the heck out. Republicans generally milk the heck out of Memorial Day and
Yeah.
Veterans Day.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service and patriots and this.
Yeah.
They don't understand the difference. Memorial Day is for people who died in wars. Veterans Day is to honor our veterans. They confuse
Yeah.
those, but they milk the heck out of those 2
Yeah.
days. They don't say a word on Labor Day,
Mm-hmm.
where we're usually thank you for the labor, thank you for
Yeah.
having weekends. So
Yeah.
parties usually pick there's certain days. Well,
Yeah.
MLK Day, our Civil Rights, Martin Luther King
Yeah.
Day, because it's so important to many of our families who have been marginalized. We usually try to participate and so forth. And I made a decision not to post anything
That's
on that
fine.
day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You should never feel obliged
No,
to,
I
to
agree.
signal
I
your, your
I agree
viewpoint.
with that. So I made a decision not to post anything, even though I read everyone else's comments
Yeah.
and I even shared some other people's comments and so forth. So that was unusual for me
Yeah.
to not do that. But when I saw this other person's posting, who has never said anything about Charlottesville,
Mhm.
also consider never marched in Pride Parade, doesn't attend any people of color events,
Yeah. Yeah.
even when the person was running for office, wanted to introduce the person's self to the NAACP as if though,
Mhm.
and this is
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
It would be like me sitting down to next someone and saying, "Well, I have a couple of black friends that I've met." You know, I mean, it's just for me that messaging just comes across as I can't believe you would even say something like that. So the person posted on today, and you can
Mm.
people can go and look at what people posted. Today's words of Martin Luther King, you know, and so forth. In the first paragraph, the other 3 paragraphs were all about that person and their election.
Yeah.
And there's a certain unwritten rule that you don't necessarily talk about politics when you're posting something
Yeah.
like that. And this person used that event. But not only that, our state party chairperson yesterday said, today is Martin Luther King Day, and in today's
I know.
memory,
Yeah,
and so forth.
that happens all the time. People hijack events
And-
for their
and-
own
and-
personal aggrandizement. And
I
it's-
was like, I
it-
can't
it's,
believe.
it's a bad habit.
And
People do it.
and that happened.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, I can't. And that's why I wish kind of Tony was here so he could tell me how he felt about it. But I was kind of, I don't know if I was like, who at that time was saying this is a good idea to do?
Yeah.
Because surely there are other people whose families have sacrificed so much more than many of our families who would see something like that and go, I can't believe this person just used this opportunity to advance their own political career. And once again,
Right.
it goes back to what I've said before. The whole reason that all happened was because you ignored the people that Martin Luther King had been speaking to.
The thing about these holidays is that they are going to evolve over time, and at a certain point, there will be no one who has a living memory
Sure.
of the man himself anymore, and it's all going to be from history books and family memories and stuff like that, and so it will evolve into something else completely, and people may have a whole different conception of it, just like Christmas and Halloween and a lot of the other important holidays.
So that made me.
And let me
Yeah,
finish
go
this,
ahead.
but because my perspective as a radical libertarian is that I want to post the unredacted letter
Sure.
that was finally published in the New York Times 3 years ago, 2014, I think. The letter that the FBI sent to Martin Luther King
Mm.
with reference to the compromising materials about his personal life
Mm.
to try to encourage him to commit suicide.
Mm. Yeah.
So the relationship between our police state
Mm-hmm.
and civil rights activists,
Mhm.
hippies, people who want to change the world, progressives, is pretty nasty.
Mhm.
Just within the last week, there was a former FBI agent on, I think it was on Tucker Carlson, admitting that part of the agenda of the FBI was to make sure that progressives didn't get into government. So I think that would be a really good marketing marketing point for the Green Party.
What?
In any case, just to
Sure.
wrap this point up.
Yeah, because we're getting close.
Yeah,
to
we're getting close to that. So the point is that this holiday means different things to different people.
Sure.
And in my case, I like to focus on the fact that the establishment fought him and fought him. And I wasn't aware of this when I was growing up. I only came to realize this later as a lot more information from the intelligence agencies and the enforcement agencies came to light. And so it's really important to understand how the establishment fights back. And that, to me, is the enduring lesson that here's a guy who said a lot of very important things, a lot of very truthful things, a lot of very powerful things, had a very powerful message of peace. It was very, very anti-war. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. And that's just a message that we should carry with us.
I agree. I agree. And you're a calming force. It's so. Well, what I was going to say is, after I was so upset about that, and I was like, okay, we need to say something about the hypocrisy and how can you say that you're concerned about voting rights when this is the exact demographic you completely ignored when you were running for office, but now suddenly you're concerned about voting rights? If you were concerned about voting rights, you would have asked them about their absentee ballots in the first place.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what I'm thinking. And so then Steve King posted something just as stupid on Twitter about how today on Martin Luther King Day we need the rights to do something or whatever, which was so completely.
Didn't he vote for his own censure?
Yes.
And I just think that this is another important case. I ended the last episode by saying people should not talk to the New York Times.
Exactly.
And I do want to emphasize that because there was also a professor who's a personal acquaintance of mine for many years. I met him in the mid '80s, and he was ripped out of context by Sam Tannenhouse from the New York Times, book review editor. And there was a lawsuit, and he teaches at Loyola in New Orleans, Tulane. I mean, now I can't remember Tulane or Loyola.
Tulane is in
New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Yeah, but
Loyola is in.
Anyway,
If
he
they were
teaches
better
in
at
New
football
Orleans.
this year, I
Yeah.
wouldn't know where they're at. So.
Yeah. So anyway, Google
Yes.
Walter Block, New York Times,
That's right.
slavery, because
Okay.
he was talking about slavery and they took it out of context to make it sound like he supported slavery when he obviously does not. His whole body of writing is all
against
about
it.
individual rights and freedom and anti-slavery, anti-serfdom. So it's just crazy, and he took him to court, and I don't know where it finally ended up, but I think that I don't know if he prevailed in the end. I need to go look that up.
Well, this all got better late last night.
Yes.
When I saw on MSNBC, and you can go to YouTube or you can go to MSNBC.com and you can see Reverend Barber's remarks at a university or college in Tennessee. And Reverend Barber basically stood up, and the governor of Tennessee was there, and there was someone else was there who they have no history of civil rights support, so to speak. But they went to the event, just as most elected officials go to events, and they go to the breakfasts and so forth, just to kind of show that they support him. And Reverend Barber basically, I'm completely paraphrasing, I encourage all of you guys, and we'll try to post it on the Coffee and Ponduce Facebook page, the video. And he stood up and he basically said, it's interesting that you would, no, but he told the audience, if you support, if you believe a border wall is not necessary and this is stand up, and look who is not standing up, and those are the people who really aren't practicing what Martin Luther King, and it was the white governor and so forth. And then he said, "What is your last name?" He said, "Lee." He said, "So you're," and I'm paraphrasing this. He says, "My last name is Barber." He said, "So we're immigrants, and this, and so." He did it so well, and that made me feel a little bit better that a voice like Reverend Barber would highlight the hypocrisy between elected officials, people running for office, who show up at people's churches when they need them to vote, and then they pander to them. We know that in our Latinx community as well. Unfortunately, there's some candidates who don't even show up to our communities. In the future, they will. This whole show is about educating and targeting Latinx and Latinx allies. And there are so many people who don't take the time to understand the Latinx culture, and it's so diverse, whether it's Guatemalan or Mexican or Salvadorian or Panamanian or Colombian or whatever. And but yet
Venezuelan, Ecuadorian,
Venezuelan,
Peruvian, Chilean,
yes,
Argentinian,
and so
Uruguayan.
there's many, and I want to thank those who do take the time to do that, because you come across as anyway. This is probably one of the least interesting shows we've done, but I appreciate having the conversation with you. Not least. I got to be careful how I say that.
I juggle. I'll take off my clothes and juggle. Yes. How about that?
Well, no, we want the
ratings to go up. We want the ratings to go up.
That's right. So as we wind this down, once again, I want to sincerely thank our sponsor for Pan-Dulce for today, Haiti Blau. She's the owner of Blau Catering. She's here in Charlotte. So if you have an event, whether you're a company who needs Pan-Dulce delivered to your for meetings or whatever the case may be, or a wedding, quinceañera, or whatever it is. Her number is 704-805-0269. I can tell you it is very, very delicious. I wish we had more people so I could eat more during the show. Once again, Blau Catering. I also want to say that if you're out there and if you want to reach one of the demographic that is very brand loyal, that is the fastest growing demographic in America, specifically in Charlotte, North Carolina, in our region here. They have incredible dispensable income. They are the future of North Carolina as far as demographics, plus everyone else. Please consider sponsoring our show as well. We're in the early stages of fine-tuning our show. We've been doing that for a while, and we'll continue to do that until we get to a point where we are ready to go big time, so to speak.
We'll powder our forehead.
Yes, we'll powder our forehead.
So we don't shine.
So if you are interested in doing that, and if you're interested in those kind of things, please contact Kalia Lilly's Event Coordinator and Talent Agency Corporation. Their number is 980-477-1513. For sponsorship, it's 980-477-1513. Or you can email our show at Coffee, COFFEE, Panduse, PANDELCE, @gmail.com. So call 980-477-1513 or send us an email. And once again, we didn't talk about this, but today's button of the day,
This is my campaign button. It's a very nice logo. It was designed by a good professional who's done a lot of work.
Can we go over just 2 seconds so we can talk about just very, very quickly? Yesterday, what happened with the courts? 30 seconds. Tell us. Okay, so
it's going to go on.
Okay.
It'll continue to go on. I was there.
So for people who don't understand, Mark Harris had filed a lawsuit to
the writ of mandamus. His request to order a higher court to make the lower board certify
the election.
Deal, lost. So Dan McCready's campaign prevailed. Mark Harris's campaign continues to be frustrated. So they'll continue along with the investigation.
But this is what I'm confused about, and I wish we had talked a little bit more about this. Dan McCready, he wasn't it wasn't against Dan McCready. It was against the Board of Elections.
That's right. It was against the board. But McCready had an intervener there. Who could sit there. In theory, I could have had an intervener.
Exactly.
There too.
I think we got to clear this. Not that it's important. Dan McCready didn't prevail. Dan McCready just had an attorney that was there representing him. the Board of Elections prevailed. Dan McCready is sending out like,
His
we
ca-
won. His thing got thrown. No, Dan
I know.
McCready, you
It's-
didn't.
there-
Yeah,
it's
I know.
spin.
It's all spin. Exactly. So basically, what this means is we're exactly where we were before.
That's
A
right.
Board of Elections is going to be appointed. A decision
That's
will be
right.
made on what happens and so forth as we move
And
forward.
that was the expectation, even though I thought Harris had a little better chance
So did I.
with his
Yeah.
with his legal argument. It's like, come on, this is ridiculous. We're going to do all this stuff, and we don't have anybody seated. But there is some argument for
Sure.
getting it right rather than doing something now and then worrying about it later.
But I will say-
I accept that there is an
Yeah,
argument.
but I will say, and I appreciated the fact that that you had gone there yesterday, and we actually streamed that on one of our pages
Yeah.
to people to watch it and so forth. And what I said even before that was that Mark Harris had every right to use legal options to feel
Absolutely,
whatever
yeah.
he made a decision.
He would have been foolish not to.
And the Mecklenburg County, the Democratic Party chairperson in North Carolina, Wayne Goodwin, was all saying that Mark Harris is trying to steal your votes. Mark Harris is and Dan
No,
McCready.
no.
That was
They're on this hysteria messaging.
But yet, when it finished, look at what happened. Justice prevailed. Justice prevailed. So I guess for a Latinx individual or any voter, please understand there's a spin to it. They're not being mean by saying that. You're not. Wayne Goodwin and Dan McCready aren't going to say we're afraid we're going to lose an election. They're going to do everything they can to try to
Inflame the voters.
inflame the voters to keep them interested,
Yeah.
because that is really what the goal is
Yeah.
to keep people interested.
Anger,
so if there's a new election.
fear, hair on fire.
Exactly. Now, do I wish it'd be more positive? Do I wish that the message had been, you know what? Let justice determine what is right and wrong and so forth, because these are the same individuals that when we sue for voter ID, and then when the other side says, oh, they're trying to steal the people's rights, and this it works both ways. So you can't. That's the hypocrisy that sometimes I really and what I'm seeing more and more with the Democratic Party, especially the North Carolina Democratic Party, is they're becoming more hypocrites and more hypocrites. And to me, that it's running away from what we our true message and what we need to become or what we need to do. And so that is.
We should have a whole show on this whole issue of
We will.
voters and gerrymandering, and because there's a lot of interesting stuff
Yeah,
to talk
It
about
is.
there.
So we've got to have time to read the Constitution of the day.
Do we?
Yes. So if I didn't have Chispita, can you hand me 2 constitutions there? I usually have them in my pocket, but I'm wearing a different jacket today. And I will let you read. We are on, I believe, the
Amendment 4, we read that last
Fifth.
week, right?
the
Fifth
fifth,
Amendment?
Fifth Amendment.
Ah, Fifth Amendment.
Yes.
Amendment 5. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of the grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces, or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same office to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So there's a lot of stuff here. There's eminent domain. There's self-incrimination. There's a lot. There's a lot to go over. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, Coffee and Panduce. I appreciate Jeff. Thank you for taking the time out to be here.
Gracias.
And as we move forward, please stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you next time on Coffee and Panduce. Now we can eat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.